Welcome, everybody. Buenos dias to everyone who is joining. We'll just allow a little bit longer to have some more people join, and then we'll start the webinar. Advantages of waiting is that we get to see all of the places that people are coming from in the chat. It's amazing to see how many people are coming from so many countries in the region. It looks like we've reached a critical mass, so maybe we'll get started. Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Shaping Responsible Communications to Raise Awareness on Suicide Prevention in the Americas. I'm Mark Senior. I'm an associate professor of psychiatry at the University of Toronto. I'm a vice president of the International Association for Suicide Prevention, and I'm the IASP's lead for its Partnerships for Life initiative in the Americas. It's really an auspicious time for us to be meeting. Last week we had World Suicide Prevention Day, and of course we're in World Suicide Prevention Month. Es un placer dar la bienvenida a todas y todos los
It
que
is a
se
pleasure to welcome
unen
each and
a
every one
nosotros a
of you that
través
are
de Zoom.
joining here throughout Zoom.
A special thank you to both the Pan American Health Organization and the University of Toronto for co-hosting this webinar, and to our wonderful presenters. I also want to acknowledge and thank the Chief of the Mental Health and Substance Use Unit at PAHO, Dr. Renato Oliveira y Souza, his colleague Amy Tausch, and my research coordinator, Danielle Sanchez Morales, who did an amazing job organizing this webinar that I think you'll all really take a lot away from. I would like to remind you that simultaneous interpretation is available in English and Spanish. To activate translation, click on the globe icon on the bottom of your screen and choose your preferred language. This is the fourth in a series of webinars jointly organized by PAHO and the University of Toronto, aimed at educating our community about suicide and how it can be prevented. We have evidence-based interventions which, when properly implemented, have been shown to reduce suicide rates. In particular, the World Health Organization specifies 4 key effective interventions through its Live Life Implementation Guide for Suicide Prevention in Countries. Our previous 3 webinars, which were held in September and November of 2024 and March of this year, highlighted some of these interventions, including changing the narrative through responsible media reporting on suicide, early detection and intervention for suicide prevention, and fostering life skills in young people to prevent suicide. Today, we turn to the crucial issue of raising awareness on suicide prevention through campaigns and social media, which, when done responsibly using evidence-based guidance, can reduce stigma, encourage people to seek help, and connect them to available resources. And it's important that we're talking about this here in Suicide Prevention Month because the IASP's World Suicide Prevention Day Prevention Month theme is changing the narrative. And where better to do that than on social media? We have 4 outstanding speakers joining us. Following all of the presentations, we'll have time for questions and answers. We encourage you to use the Q&A box to share your questions at any time. Y ahora tengo el placer de presentar
Now it
a
is my
nuestra
pleasure to
primera
be able to
ponente,
present
la
our first
señora
presenter,
Sinay Valverde
Mrs.
Ceciliano.
Sinay Valverde Ceciliano.
Ms. Valverde Ceciliano is a clinical psychologist and suicidologist. She works at the Technical Secretariat of Mental Health of the Ministry of Health of Costa Rica, where she coordinates national suicide prevention and mental health promotion campaigns. She also represents the country at the Technical Commission on Mental Health of Comisca and serves as a liaison with non-governmental organizations involved in the field. She's also a professor of postgraduate courses in clinical psychology and mental health. Sinay, we turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias, doctor.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Welcome to all of the people that we're going to be able to start sharing this event with. It's quite enrichful for this topic, that is how we are able to deliver the message to all of the possible parties. And precisely from Costa Rica's end, we are going to tell you in reference to being able to see how we do this. And if you can please tell me if you can see the screen.
Sí.
Bien.
Very good.
En Costa Rica,
we have a narrative part that has been strengthened in reference to being able to see in an integrated manner the suicide behavior. The national policy of mental health incorporates 3 strategic points, in which one part is specifically in reference to being able to have the approach to the integrated suicidal behavior. In the action plan, we are able to work with public institutions and those that have a large scope to be able to develop concrete actions in this matter. In the same way, the new law of mental health and the regulation reinforces this commitment. It establishes clear guidelines and standards and for the approach of this suicide behavior. Here in Costa Rica, in previous years, the campaigns have been oriented to be able to motivate people to break silence. But we were able to see something important. We want you to be able to see this video and let me know if you're able to hear it or if we can hear it. I noticed that my cousin was not doing well. She started isolating herself. She changed her behavior. She was isolated. My mom thought she was on drugs, but I told her it was just better to ask her how she was and how we could help her before judging her. I wrote to her and I called her so many times to ask her if she was okay, and she would always say yes, or she just wouldn't answer. It was very difficult for her to open up, and I told her we're not always doing well, and she had the right to not be well if something was actually happening to her. But it was important to talk about it so we can look for improvement, and I was there for her. I was sure that something was going on, but I was questioning myself whether it was correct to insist or not. Until one day she wrote to me and she said, "Can we speak?" And I said, "Yes." She told me she wanted to commit suicide. I listened to her respectfully without judging her, and she felt my support, and we looked for professional help. Today, I know that having asked her and being pending was worth it. Asking saves people. Learn how to ask.
www.esprevenir.com. En caso de emergencia, llamar al 911. Un mensaje del Ministerio de Salud.
Bien.
Very
Este y
good.
muchos otros
Well, this
videos
and of course many
con
other
esta
videos
caracterización
with this
que es
same
muy
characteristic, which
natural,
is
muy
very
del
natural,
cotidiano, las pueden
very
encontrar en la
important,
página
is able to be found in
estaresprevenir.com.
the page
Bien, les contaba que las
escucharprevenir.com. I was
campañas
saying
eran
that the
orientadas a
campaigns
que
were
rompamos el
oriented more
silencio,
for
busquen
us to
ayuda,
be able to
pero
break
les
silence, to look
pasó
for help.
que
But it also
y era
happened
un
to
reto
us
importante,
that
las
there was an
personas
important
se
challenge. The
enfrentaban
people
que cuando buscaban
were
ayuda
seeing
los
that when
sistemas
they would
estaban
look for help,
saturados
these
con
systems were
limitación
saturated with
en la respuesta.
limitations in the
Entonces, ante
response.
este escenario,
Therefore, in
tuvimos que
reference to this
orientarnos
scenario,
a
we
un
had to
enfoque
orient ourselves
centrado en
towards
fortalecer
an
las
approach
capacidades de
focused
la
on
comunidad.
reinforcing the
¿Para
capacities
qué?
of the
Para que
people.
puedan hacer la
What for?
identificación
So that they are
temprana de
able to have an
señales,
early
la provisión
identification
de
of
apoyo oportuno,
signals, to be
que
able to have
las
suitable
personas puedan
support, to
reconocer
have
en su
people
entorno
acknowledge and recognize
cuáles
within their own
son las
environment which are
dificultades
the
para la regulación
difficulties for
emocional,
the emotional
la tristeza, la
regulation,
frustración y la
such as
ira.
sadness,
Desde esas
frustration,
fases más
rage,
tempranas,
starting from these early
cambios
phases,
de
such as the
ánimo,
change of
la pérdida
in the
marcada de
mood,
intereses, por
the
ejemplo,
loss of
hiperrealismo,
interest that is
alteraciones en el
done,
sueño, en el
different
apetito y
alterations in
otros,
appetite,
así
sleep,
como
and others, as
primeros
well as
pensamientos de muerte o la
first
desesperanza en sí.
thoughts of death.
Entonces las campañas las empezamos a
So the
orientar
campaigns, we
hacia
started
esta
orienting them
educación
towards that
accesible
education, this
de
accessible
un mensaje
education
claro,
of
cercano,
a
libre de tecnicismo, como lo
clear
vimos
message, free of
en este
technicism,
primer video,
as we saw
donde
in this
la
first
comunidad, las
message,
personas
where the
perciban
community, the people would
cómo
perceive
es viable que
how
nosotros
it is
podamos
viable that we are
preguntarles,
able
¿cómo
to
has
ask
estado? ¿Está
about
pasando
this.
algo?
How have you been?
Mira,
Are you doing
esto que
okay?
te preocupa, ¿lo
Look,
has
this that
hablado
is
con alguien?
concerning. Have you
¿Te
spoken
estás
about this
haciendo
with
daño?
anyone?
¿Has
Are you hurting
pensado en
yourself?
suicidarte?
Have you thought about committing
Esta es
suicide? This
información
is
que va a empoderar a
information
las personas,
that
es un
people are
tema de
going to be able to
concientización
see.
con
It's
la
something that has to do with
familia, con las
awareness
comunidades en
with the
general, para
communities,
que
with the
reconozcan
families,
que tienen
in
esa
order for them
capacidad
to
de hacerlo, que
recognize
pueden ayudar al otro a aliviar el
that they are able to help
sufrimiento
others
emocional, a
alleviate the
propiciar
emotional
espacios
suffering, to promote
seguros para
spaces that are
conversar,
safe to be able
especialmente
to
desde esa
speak,
parte de la empatía.
especially from that
Así
part
es
of the
como
empathy.
empezamos
And that
a
is how we
trabajar
begin to work
a todos los niveles, todos los
at all
grupos
the
poblacionales,
levels, all of the
para
population
desempeñar
ends,
ese rol
so
que
that we can
necesitamos.
perform
Entonces,
this
en
role.
ejemplos,
So in
es
examples,
importante tomar en
it is
consideración
important to be able
que
to take this into
empezamos a
consideration.
crear
It was about us starting to create
material
material,
psicoeducativo para poblaciones como población
psychoeducational
juvenil,
material
de
for
qué
populations
hacer
such as
en
youth,
caso
or what to do
de cómo
in
actuar cuando
case
ya hay un
of
suicidio
how are we able
consumado,
to act when there is
cómo
a
es
suicide
el
already.
trabajo de
How is
promoción
the
de la salud
work, the
mental para las
promotion
poblaciones LGTBIQ.
of
Realizamos
this for
manuales de
LGBTQ
autocuidado en
community
diferentes escenarios,
self-care
incluyendo
manuals in different
entornos
scenarios, including those that are working, how this is seen in reference to the people that have had a loss of suicide, to provide these telephone numbers where we are able to contact someone in case we see ourselves in a situation for this work environments. There was actually a standard, a management guide to be able to see the suicide behavior in workspaces. And there have also been studies delivered regarding what has happened, mortality rates, suicide intents, and we also have others being created to be able to review what it is that is happening. Currently, we are in a process of preparing reports of suicide analysis. What does this mean? To be able to review the psychosocial environment of each staff. It is quite complex work, but we've worked on the importance on this, and this has taken us to be able to have progress. An important element, which is about making constant calls throughout these campaigns so that all of the incitations of any end have their own protocol to follow. We've already had, we've been able to work in reference to seeing this, local governments, universities, and even these alignments in order to know which are the important and to have protocols as campaigns and educational campaigns in mental health. An important element is also that we've worked on to be able to have the construction of this psychoeducational material for all the contexts. For example, this here, grief for suicide, we did this first gathering this at a national level in reference also to speaking Spanish speaking and we were not we were not getting the material that we were able to use, so we started doing it on our own. Considering that we were able to do this directly with different links, bonds, family bonds, and we had over 50 products that are in grief by suicide that is found in the website. And what has been done in the forums previously has have had a large participation. These have been done both in the metropolitan area and also in these parts in reference to the fact that we are seeing a great response and also the actions, the intersectorial actions, because we need to work to be able to develop people in reference to this end, and as well as work in reference to representation in fairs.
We have also these initiatives with vulnerable populations, indigenous populations, migrants. An important element that we had in a coordinated manner to have a whole communications campaign for the protection of breaches. For instance, before on the news, we saw the exposure of the person who was committing suicide. And we were working so that they could display also the building of bridges to protect those people from committing suicide. They are working on building this structure, and also there were important interviews on this regard. In this regard, it is also important to showcase the training provided to the staff who was going to work in this service. In this coordination, it is also important to say that addressing the issue is important. We were able to work with large companies, hotels for having their emotional help brigades, and also the centers for building elements to showcase the importance of talking about this topic and that we are equal as peers. We were also working with the Ministry of Health and Youth, the Ministry of Public Health, and other institutions that are joining these activities, as well as the non-governmental organizations. And we wanted to take this message, Dress Yellow, as a message that we want to hear you. in private and public companies, even with those people that are deprived from their liberty. We were able to talk about resilience in relation to suicidal behaviors, to strengthening not only these populations deprived from their freedom, but also to ask for external support as to the government from Spain to have these follow-up activities to implement the corresponding activities. And there are also other sectors as the schools of medical sciences and social sciences. We were not able to reach them, but we were able to convey the messages through the soccer teams. They were open to receive us to convey this message. We were also having other actions. For instance, we were able to join efforts with many institutions to have more than 5,000 teens in a conference with Nick Vujicic to talk about resilience against bullying and also the importance of the different actions to prevent suicide. With other companies, they also were open to collaborate. They were asking how to do it, how to collaborate, and we were providing all the necessary information. Currently, we have many messages in Costa Rica that are conveying the message that your life is important. In the religious spaces, we saw also an important opportunity. We took the messages to these activities with this material that was built in the country, because usually it doesn't matter if I am a specialist in this topic or if I am an authority in the health. I need to listen to my priest, to my religious authorities, and with this we were able to work with them to raise awareness, especially for these populations, because they also work with other vulnerable populations. In this regard, this year it was also amazing to see that in Los Angeles Basilica, that is one of the most important basilicas in our country, they were praying for those who were suffering from suicidal thoughts and also for the families who had a loss to suicide. There were priests who were also trained in this topic. They are already strongly addressing this topic. In this interinstitutional coordination, we were able to have, through the 911 emergency system, identify what calls are specifically describing suicidal behaviors or mental urgencies, and now we are receiving a specific notification for these problems. And with this, all the institutions who were participating in the trainings and also who were aware of the importance of the topic, they are dressed in yellow, they are using the yellow color to address the topic. Large companies as the malls, they are also joining the activities. They donated the publication using screens, using totems and others to use this slogan. There is a main group creating the information, but they also wanted to participate. They wanted to also use this slogan to convey the message. Even in the highways where we have a high movement, with the Ministry of Public Works and Transportation, we were able to use these posters so that people receive the information that they can be heard. Now, this poster, this billboard was shown in one of the airports in the country. The air police, they were able to showcase this message, and when the airplanes were landing, they were able to read this message, "Let's talk." And this is where the awareness raising starts. This was also taken to the assemblies. We were able to have events for survivors of suicidal events. And this has been done in the metropolitan area, but also in other areas, because people already know they are going to have a safe place to be heard, because we have professionals who are working very hard. Now I'm going to show you one of the videos. This is a morning to suicide that we were able to prepare with the survivors to suicide. Let's see this short video. I was born listening that this was only going to happen to bad people, and those who committed suicide were cowards. But actually, my family, my brother was not a coward. That's why when I received the news, I was not able to understand why this was happening to us, why it happened to him.
Bien, y en
Well,
en esta misma línea se hace el
in this
anuncio
line, we were
de
able to
mucho tiempo
have the
antes de
announcement
cuándo va a ser una
also.
actividad en
Well,
el Colegio
before we
Profesional de
can have the
Psicología en este trabajo
announcement, the
titulado.
previous
Y si
announcement of the
personas de Costa Rica, que
activities.
son
And
sobrevivientes de
if we
suicidio,
have people in Costa Rica
quisieran
who are
acompañarnos este año,
suicide or
aquí está
survivors,
la
they want to
invitación, que es para el
join
próximo
us. This
18
is the
de octubre.
invitation
Ya
that
para
will
ir
be
cerrando,
on
sobre los
October
espacios de comunicación,
18.
se hacen múltiples actividades, como sé que en muchos otros
To
lugares.
finalize with the
Importantísimo es
communication
que lo hemos
activities,
logrado
it is
llevar
very
que el
important to
Colegio
say
de
that we were
Periodistas
able to
haya
work
hecho un llamado
with
después de
the
denuncias de que
professional school
hicimos
of
en
journalists. They
en
were able
ese
to
esfuerzo de,
have
por favor, no den noticias
denunciations.
tan
They were able
gráficas,
to
y
provide
crearon una guía de cobertura donde
and be
un
respectful
capítulo
with
entero
their
será de
news.
suicidio. Hemos
And we
logrado también
created a
tener
whole
muchos
chapter on
espacios para
suicide.
entrevistas.
We were
Nos
able
hemos
to find
apoyado
many
en
spaces
personas
for
reconocidas en
interviews. We
en
were
diversos
having the
campos,
help
como los
provided by
comentaristas, los
different
especialistas
people, the
en deportes, de
specialists,
los cuales
the
ellos nos
sport
colaboraron con una capacitación previa
reporters who
y
were
llevaron a
able
ustedes,
to
siendo que
provide also
entonces
a
las personas
training, who were
interactuaban y
able
decían:
to
hola
share with
Pablo, yo
their
estoy pasando por un
networks,
momento
and they were
difícil, necesito
able to
ayuda, y
receive
poder
messages as
llevar y
this
salvar
one:
a
"Hi,
una
Pablo,
persona.
I am going
Muchos
through
medios
a
de redes
depression situation and
dándoles
I need
ese
help."
seguimiento donde
And there
las
were
personas
many
dicen:
other
es cierto,
networks
el
where people
reconocimiento no es solo una
admit that
patología
they
lo que lleva al
need
suicidio, son
this
muchas
help.
cosas que
This is
suceden
not
en las
only a
vidas personas.
pathology. There are many
Llevamos
things
a
involved
a
that are
todos los
happening
lugares que de pronto no hay
within a
redes sociales,
person.
entonces
We were able also to
hacemos
take this
pautas
information to
porque
other areas
lo que no se
where
refuerza se
they
extingue,
don't
y
have
nosotros
access
no
to
vamos a
social
permitir que se
media,
extinga, entonces
and
lo
we
llevamos
don't want
a
to
los
have
a las
this
emisoras
information
locales, de
extinguished.
las
That's
cuales
why
también
we
le
are
damos un
disseminating all
seguimiento.
this information, and we
Hacemos
are also
la
having a
revisión de
follow-up of
cuánto
this
alcance ha tenido.
information dissemination
Hemos
to
tenido ya por varios
measure
años
the
que en los
the
sorteos de la
reach of
lotería
this
nos dan un día para que
information.
nosotros
We also
llevemos el
had a
mensaje
day
de
in
que
the
en
Lotto
septiembre
to
es
convey
el
the
mes de
message
prevención del
that in
suicidio.
September
Igual
we
la
are
ampliación
having the
de
Suicide
dispositivos
Prevention
y
Day. We also
pasacalles,
have
entre otros, que
incentives, and
se
we also
realizan.
have
Acá,
campaigns,
para
street
ya cerrar, les
campaigns. And
dejo el
finally,
QR
here I would
donde
like to
el
share
material
with you the
de los manuales
website
que les he
address with the
enseñado en
material
esta
that I
mañana
was showing
están
this
ahí, y si
morning.
no están
You can
también
find these
en esa
materials
dirección.
there.
Muchas
Otherwise,
gracias.
you can also visit this address. Thank you very much.
Maybe we'll leave that up for a moment so that people can take it. Thank you so much, Dr. Valverde Siciliana. That was unbelievable. The amazing breadth and depth of activities that are happening in Costa Rica, the involvement of soccer teams, journalists, so many different things that just seem so crucial and amazing. I'm sure that there are, and in fact, we probably could have listened to that for a lot longer. So we'll have to maybe have you back for another webinar. But we do have to move on. I will just reiterate something that Amy Tausch had put into the chat, which is that we'll be taking questions and answers at the end. So if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A and we'll get to them at the end. But now it's time to move to our next presentation, which will be by Ms. Maria de Los Angeles Corral and Ms. Vera Lukács. Ms. de Los Angeles Corral has dedicated her career to solving challenging social problems. A hallmark of her trajectory has been building the essential infrastructure organizations needed to boost their communications results and shape impactful social narratives. Her career in the nonprofit sector has included working with well-known and iconic organizations like the American Red Cross, the College Board, and Walgreens. She's fluent in Spanish and has advanced education and training in cultural and linguistic studies. So welcome, Maria, and also Vera Lukács, who is a social media strategist and the current senior director of social media at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. With over a decade of experience in the social media space, Vera has spent the last 8 years at the AFSP leading the organization's digital presence, which I can tell you is very amazing, with a focus on organic strategy, community management, and influencer engagement. Her strategic vision and creative execution have been instrumental in growing AFSP's social challenges by approximately 100,000 new followers annually. It's no surprise at all. Please, Maria and Vera, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Muchas gracias a todos. Y
Thank
agradezco
you.
su atenta
I
atención.
thank
Mi
you
nombre es
for
María de Los
your
Ángeles Corral.
attention. My name is María de Los Ángeles Corral y soy vicepresidenta de Relaciones
Soy la
Públicas
vicepresidenta de Relaciones Públicas en la Fundación Americana para la Prevención del Suicidio. Today I'm going to talk
and the
about
American Foundation for
one of our
Suicide
hallmark
Prevention.
campaigns at AFSP. It's called Seize the Awkward. And it was
Voy a-
created by the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention in partnership with the Ad Council. It uses research to inform all its content and strategy. This campaign and all that we create at AFSP is filtered through our lens of ethical messaging, following the guidelines set forth not only by this organization, but by many others in our space. And, Dr. Senior is one of those colleagues that is very dedicated to ethical reporting and messaging, just as we are. The goal of all our messaging at AFSP is not only to inform, but when it comes to media and news engagement, it's to prevent suicide contagion. And the guidelines that we have set forth give us really a clear direction in how we can prevent suicide contagion. Since its inception in 2018, at AFSP, we have sought peer organization partners to help fund and promote this campaign to youth audiences. This year, we're very proud to say that our partner in this work is the JED Foundation, who works directly with college-aged and high school youth. This campaign aims to solve a problem that has existed before the pandemic, but that was exacerbated by it. You can move on to the next slide. I'd like to share some very high-level numbers to frame the problem. Young adults in the United States are facing mental health challenges in ways that we have had to now step up, many of our organizations and government, to do something about. Suicide is the third leading cause of death among 16 to 14-year-olds. 1 in 4 young adults experience a mental health challenge each year, and over 2.6 million college students will have serious thoughts of suicide. That's a very high number when you consider that there's maybe like 19 million college students at any given point in the United States going through our schools, our higher education school system. And one of the insights that that has driven all our efforts around this campaign and has been elucidated by the research is this notion that young adults will turn to a peer in a time of crisis. So we know that 76% of young people will turn to a peer in a time of crisis. And that's a really important insight. That is why this campaign works to empower youth to help friends who are struggling with their mental health by getting them to talk. Hablar salva vidas, right? As our colleague, Doctora Valverde, was just talking about. We can go on to the next slide. So some other information about this campaign, I already talked about the purpose, which is to empower youth to help each other when they are struggling with their mental health by talking. The audience is youth age 16 to 24, that the key group where we see in the youth spectrum the most number of suicides. These are youth who are struggling with their mental health, with strategies designed to resonate specifically with Black and Latine young adults who face barriers to access mental health. Unfortunately, in the United States, we do see challenges for these populations to access for a myriad of reasons, not just language barriers, but also insurance, accessibility, and even geographically not these services not being accessible to them. The core message is to start the conversation about mental health if you suspect a friend is struggling, even if it feels uncomfortable. And that discomfort is where this the first phase of our campaign started. If you can go on to the next slide. The first phase, the campaign has had 3 phases. It started, as I mentioned, in 2018, and it's still going strong. The first phase of our campaign was called the awkward silence, and it focused on educating on the signs that someone is struggling and how to start the conversation. In fact, that notion of recognizing the signs and how to start the conversation is key to, it's a through line through all of our education efforts at AFSP. It is, and it will perennially be, because we can't say enough about recognizing the signs. There's still very low awareness in the public about what those signs are, and yet we do polling, and people consistently say they want to know how to recognize the signs of suicide. The second phase, whatever gets you talking, focused on starting and sustaining mental health conversations with friends. And the third phase, we can talk about it, focuses on the lived experiences of young people and how adults can sometimes not be helpful. As we all know, many of us, our instinct when somebody tells us they're going through something difficult is to tell them that it's going to be all right, that maybe they should be grateful, all the things that we know are often not helpful when trying to support someone going through a crisis. Rather, to encourage them to push past the stigma and to get help from a friend. While the bulk of the campaign content is in English, some of the content has been created in Spanish, and I'm going to hand it off to my colleague Vera to go deeper on these phases. Vera?
Thanks, Maria. Hi, everyone. It's great to see you all and talk a little bit about our Seize the Awkward campaign. So Maria really primed you on what these different phases have been throughout the years. As Mark had mentioned, I've been at AFSP for 8 years. So I've been at AFSP and with Seize the Awkward from really the beginning of the campaign. And it's been so amazing to watch it evolve over the years as really our culture around mental health and suicide has evolved with it. So in terms of this first phase, the awkward silence, when we launched it in 2018, we paired it with this creative strategy that really personified this awkward silence that we can sometimes tend to feel when friends, experience right before they're going to have a more serious conversation or a conversation about mental health. And this character of awkward really used humor to show our viewers that the opportunity that exists in recognizing something is wrong and breaking through that awkward silence between friends is really important. And it really encourages people to use this awkward moment to check in and ask their friends about their mental health. And, since we're reaching out to young adults, our target age group is 16 to 24. We were also really focused on the social media creative that was going to be an extension of this video. So we have a dedicated Instagram channel. We created GIFs. We partnered with popular digital and TV talent to share their stories online. And actually, the year after we launched the campaign, we actually featured Billie Eilish as part of the campaign. And that video alone drove millions of views on YouTube. So the next phase, Whatever Gets You Talking, we launched in 2020 when you think about the timing of it, it was when the pandemic started and young adults were really trying to navigate these changes and kind of shifting to they were already very digital and online, but that really ramped up during these 2 years. And so we tapped into different Instagram and TikTok creators to reach young adults, especially during Suicide Prevention Month. And, the COVID pandemic was really disruptive to the lives of young people and also their friendships. And so we knew it was really important to put it out there that even though we're faced with this current moment of a pandemic, Whatever Gets You Talking really showcased the variety of ways that young people could start and continue conversations about mental health with their friends. And whether that be through sending a GIF or an emoji or a call or text, these were all really important pathways to get them to talk with their friends. And we also, in this phase, we also tapped into different Instagram and TikTok creators to extend these messages across all of our channels. And then lastly, we have our next phase, We Can Talk About It, which is still, very present for us too and part of the campaign, but it was really inspired by the insight that young people are surrounded by harmful messages online. And how do we change a little bit of that narrative? How do we help them talk to their friends about mental health in a way that can be really, really helpful? And, we know that social media, it's here for better, for worse. And I feel like I can say that because I've worked in this space for a decade. There are spaces online that are really helpful and supportive, and it's been a place where people can create community. But then we also have kind of the bad and the ugly of social media too, right? So we really wanted to address that head on and some of these barriers that young adults were facing and counteract some of these messages by reaching out, encouraging people to reach out to friends who might be struggling. And, as always, we continue to amplify this message through our different platforms and trusted messengers like influencers who have a strong young adult audience. And then we also had partnerships with platforms such as Meta and Snap, who helped us with some interactive GIFs and filters and these really creative and fun ways to reach our target audience. And then we also teamed up with future Heisman winner Caleb Williams when he was still a student athlete at USC. And I have to say, this team really knows how to find talent that is breaking through. When we worked with Billie Eilish a couple years previous, the year after our work together, she had won a bunch of Grammys. And so this team just has a really keen eye for spotting emerging talent, and it has really helped us be able to continue reaching our audience. So I'm going to pass it back over to Maria to show a few different videos of our PSA work.
Thank you, Vera. We did think it would be helpful for you to see some of our PSAs, to see these campaign phases come to life. And the first one that we'll feature is We Can Talk About It. It addresses those harmful messages and generational misconceptions that young people often face. Vera, if you can please play.
I don't know. I'm so sad. You've got a roof over your head.
Bro, you gotta stop with that depression stuff.
Escúchame. En esta casa, los hombres no lloran.
Listen to me here. Boys do not cry.
You all right?
It just feels like it's coming from everywhere.
Do you want to talk about it?
Thanks for hearing me out, bro. Appreciate it.
You can talk to me if you're feeling sad. Whenever you need to talk, I'm here, okay?
Thank you. Every time I see that ad, I get emotional because the message is so spot on with what not just youth, but many of us are experiencing, especially in relation to social media. The next spot that we want to share with you showcases some of those partnerships that we've had with very influential artists, celebrities, athletes. In this case, it's Megan Thee Stallion. She partnered with us to show that despite having a tough exterior, which she is known for, we can find strength in vulnerability by starting the conversation about mental health. Through all of our campaign phases, we have sought to partner, as we've said, with celebrities and athletes, also influencers, as their fame really helps us to amplify these campaigns exponentially. So we'll go ahead and play the ad with Megan Thee Stallion.
I've always been told I gotta be strong. Thick-skinned, stiff upper lip, tough as nails. But to be everything for everybody, it wears on you. Black don't crack, they say. But it can. I can. We all can. Y'all, it's okay to not be okay. Reach out to a friend if you see them going through it. No matter who you are, being vulnerable is what makes us whole. Learn how to help at seizetheawkward.org. And check out badbitcheshavebaddays2.com for even more resources, hotties.
And then lastly, we engaged Gen Z gamers through our partnership with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth early in 2024. Digital experiences really dominate daily life for many in the Gen Z community. So gaming is a powerful platform to engage and communicate with this audience. What's more, the immersive nature of video games fosters camaraderie and deep emotional investment, making it an ideal platform to address important topics like mental health. So let's play this ad.
Life's daily battles are not meant to be fought alone.
We're not powerless, so long as we don't lose sight of what's important.
Don't be afraid to seize that moment to talk to your friends.
Cloud, you okay?
Because checking in on a friend can create a safe space.
The first step on our new journey. You coming?
Reach out to a friend about their mental health. Seize the awkward. It's totally worth it.
Thank you. I'll pass it on to Vera, who will talk about how we show up across these campaigns.
Thank you. So the next few slides that I'm going to be going over are some of our organic social, so like Instagram, we have a Real Talk, IG Live as part of this, and then some of our media partnerships, which include Snap, TikTok, and Meta. So through the Ad Council's network of donated media partnerships, we've created some really cool custom activations with these platforms such as Instagram, Reddit, Snap, TikTok. And critically in these partnerships, we didn't just look for them to run our PSA ads. We worked really closely with their teams and creator networks to develop custom content that mirrors the organic in-app experience and deepens engagement with young adults. So just a few examples that you can see here. That meant creating stickers and filters on Snap that young people can use to start their conversation with friends, a mega thread on Reddit that translated our website resources into Reddit's format, and on TikTok highlighting LGBTQ plus and Black and Hispanic creators who made their own videos that were amplified by TikTok donated media. We also brought creators together for an interactive Instagram live conversation that was hosted on our Instagram channel. And really, this created an open space and open conversation around themes of shared intersectional identities. And they really resonated with our audiences. So additional partnerships, like Caleb Williams, like Megan Thee Stallion, they really helped us expand our reach with these key audiences, from virtual communities to right on the college campus. And the partnership with Caleb Williams really helped us reach Black and male audiences and visibility for the campaign across college campuses and among college sports fans in particular, including PSA airings at USC home games and coverage in ESPN.com. And then partnerships with Twitch and Final Fantasy helped us break through to gamers, which is just a key way that young people connect with one another and, find those communities that I had mentioned earlier. And then last year, we teamed up with the former Dance Moms star Nia Sue for a digital series where she brought her friends together to discuss their real experiences and how they check in with their peers about mental health and really model what these conversations can look like for our audience. And I think what's really cool about this series is that it struck a really nice balance of like being really aspirational, but still really relatable. And this talent, all of these folks of, Nia's friends, they all shared, they were really, vulnerable and open and, it really brought, I think, a youthful sensibility that really resonated with our audience. And I'm going to just share a quick video from this part of the campaign as well.
How are you doing? How have you been?
I've been good.
Yeah. What would you want to hear from a friend if you're having a difficult time with your mental health?
Just spend time with me, like being there. That's like the number one thing somebody can do for you.
Yeah, it's just important to have that conversation of like, hey, I'm not okay, I need help, or I need someone to just have someone listen to you. It's so important.
You're so positive online. Like, have you had times where you've struggled with mental health?
I mean, definitely gone through hard times.
Yeah.
I think everyone does.
Like, I feel closer to people after they're willing to tell me these things. I think holding like an open space for somebody.
Take down all of the barriers, like, we're good. Let's just have a conversation.
But you can't take Bonnie Bear, my long brown hair, August stars and Northeast air, or anything.
For more resources on how to check in on a friend, go to seizetheawkward.org.
All right, and then I'm going to pass it back over to Maria to share some additional impact numbers and also the website.
Thank you, Vera. So as you can imagine, any campaign has its home, and the home for this campaign is seizetheawkward.org. On our website, we offer tools and resources to start the conversation with a friend around mental health, for resources for schools and college campuses. We know it's not easy to know how to break the silence or the ice, so we've provided prompts as well as other signs that your friend may need a check-in in the first place. So again, go back to that recognizing the signs. How do we know somebody is struggling, and how do we break the ice to start that conversation? And that's from insights that we learned from, the polling that we've done with youth, and understanding what are some of the barriers that they face to connect with each other about these topics. And then the last slide. So there's a lot that we can say about the impact of this campaign, but we wanted to keep it short. This campaign has been a hit from the beginning. It has attracted star power like Billie Eilish, Megan Thee Stallion, Caleb Williams. who helped generate 83 million video views of our content. The world moves very quickly in the young adult media space. So when we launched, TikTok was a fragment of what it is today. We've always stayed on top of media and culture trends. This is necessary if you're going to work with youth while keeping our core message the same. That's created brand trust while making sure we're meeting our audiences where they are. As you've heard, even in the gaming space, we are there talking to young people. Here are some of the numbers that show the success of the campaign. $183 million has been donated by media outlets, and 7.3 million visits have been clocked on our website from the inception through June. The brand awareness of our campaign has grown from 75% to 85%, and the awareness amongst Black and Latine Hispanic audiences has surpassed the general youth market awareness by some points. So that tells us that we are doing what we said we would do, which is not only reach the general market, but also those communities that have even less access to mental health resources and support. And with that, I will end our presentation and thank you for your attention. Muchas gracias por su atención. And I believe we are going to take questions at the end. So thank you very much, everybody.
That's right. Thank you so much, Maria and Vera. It's unbelievable to see how the AFSP's various communications have evolved over time and how unbelievably sophisticated these new ones are, and how you're pulling in people very similar to what we saw in Costa Rica in a different way, but pulling in key influencers and people to really spread this message. Maybe I'll take a very quick moment. The chair's privilege to make a comment on something that you had said, which is that there's a human impulse when people look like they're in distress or they're sharing suicidal thoughts, which is to try to fix the problem. And often trying to fix the problem means people will feel overwhelmed and they won't say anything, or they'll say things that are not helpful, like Maria was suggesting, like, oh, it'll be fine, you'll be fine, or you just feel grateful. It turns out that actually, in a way, what you have to say is almost easier, but a little less intuitive. It's just, I'm here to listen, I care about you, you matter, because suicide is often so much about feeling separate and that people don't belong. And it was just amazing to see how that idea was captured in a culturally resonant way in your materials, and actually the materials of the previous presentation. So thank you so much. I told everyone this was going to be a good webinar. And now it's my pleasure to move on to our last speaker, who I've had the honor of collaborating with, Dr. Karen Scavaccini. Dr. Scavaccini is a psychologist with a PhD in psychology from the University of Sao Paulo and a master's degree in public health from the Karolinska Institute. She is the founder and director of the Instituto Vita Alegre, the first institute in Brazil dedicated to suicide prevention, mental health promotion, and postvention, as well as an active Brazilian representative at the International Association for Suicide Prevention. Dr. Scavaccini has coordinated prevention strategies, research projects, and collaborations focused on suicide prevention, mental health, and digital well-being. It's a pleasure to have you here with us, Karen. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Let me just share my screen. Okay, it's here. Just a second. Perfect. So, hello everyone. I would like to begin to thanking the Pan American Health Organization for this opportunity to be here today and to share this work with you. I also want to thank the University of Toronto, especially Dr. Mark and Daniel Sanchez, for their trust and support. And also the IASP, International Association for Suicide Prevention, which I have the honor of serving as a representative in Brazil. It's a privilege to be here with all of you today and discuss such an important topic. Today we will talk about the digital environment, what is behind the process of designing campaigns, share some examples, a lot of them actually, of what we have done, and talk about the importance of partnership. But how it does look like, and why it's important to think about campaigns and social media, because people are spending more and more time online. Here we can see the amount of data over the internet every minute of the day, and this was, I think, 2023. We really want to go to these places. And there are a lot of platforms that we can use, and it will depend country from country, but there's not only those platforms. This is the social media landscape in 2023, and wow, it's huge. And this site shows that even across different age groups, people go online in search of information. The digital spaces are very relevant for both young people and adults. And many people go there to find information, health information, mental health information, relief, or connection during crisis. And communication is not just information. It goes to emotion, timing, and format. When we think about digital world, there are both challenges and opportunities. On one side, we face risks such as harmful content, misinformation, and the way the algorithms can amplify the vulnerabilities. On the other side, we also have powerful opportunities. Social media can be a space for connection, support, and care. The last panelist shows you a lot of examples, especially when campaigns are designed with a safe messaging and adapted to the realities of the audiences we want to reach. The key is to balance between two sides, reducing harm while using the same tools to promote hope, belonging, and access of help. When planning a campaign, it's important to know what the way the internet is used in relation to suicide, because this differs depending on the severity of suicidal feelings. And this needs to be taken in account when planning the campaign. This study shows us how browsing can be more disorganized and without purpose, depending on the suicidal feeling, with a greater possibility of interaction, as well as being more focused on finding methods and avoiding offers of help. This is a model that I created to understand how suicidality develops in online environments and to map all the aspects that can increase risks. Risks that can range from intensification of vulnerabilities to the stages of consideration, ambivalence, and decision, and how the internet can amplify this risk as well as the suffering and loneliness involved. So campaigns can be based to talk about risks and also about protection. In the same way, we can use social media to our advantage to reduce suicidality by promoting the Papageno effect and increasing hope. But how can we do that? It's very important to know that behind every campaign, there is a whole process that involves strategy, studies, safeguards, objectives, measurement, and safe planning. Here are the 6 C's, at least in Portuguese. In English, did not work very well, but this is a framework to guide the planning of campaigns. It shows that there are many steps. Although many well-intentioned people want to talk about suicide, we need to understand that it's a very sensitive topic, and at the very least, it's essential to know what the campaign is trying to achieve, how, where, by whom, for whom. There is no single message that will work for everyone. We must also consider who can provide help, support, how to deal with the challenge. For example, if a creator that you invited dies by suicide during the campaign, or how to handle the demand that the campaign generated. At least in Brazil, although our public health system is fundamental, not all regions have access to care. And always we must ask, how do we evaluate what has done? And how can we understand these effects? Safe messaging involves developing communication that avoids harmful content, reduces stigma, and consistently provides pathways to help and to support. Engagement with diverse audiences requires tailoring message, language, formats, and channels to reach adolescents, parents, educators, and health professionals in a way that are culturally sensitive and inclusive. Digital literacy can empower individuals and communities to critically navigate online content and recognize misinformation and participate in building healthier digital ecosystems. And these strategies can create a comprehensive framework that not only mitigate risks, but also, and this is very important, foster meaningful connections and resilience in digital age. I will not go into detail right now, but from the original 6 Cs, I later developed the 36. Okay, I went to the dictionary and tried to find all the 6 letters that match it, and I could find them. But this is a conversation for another time. They are in my book on how to increase public awareness in prevention and postvention by moving from the campaigns, that it's the start, into action. Unfortunately, it's available only in Portuguese, but here you can see the 30 Cs framework and how they are connecting to each other. There are several ethical and strategic questions when we are thinking about campaigns. How can we balance reach and safety? Are we respecting cultural and emotional differences? Which call to action do I need or should I do? Who is missing in our storytelling? It is possible to co-create it with a live experience because people do not respond only to facts, they respond to stories. And how can we measure short-term and long-term effects on the population? How to avoid adverse effects of the campaign? How can we break the bubble? How can we create campaigns without romanticizing or trivializing suicide? How can we effectively reduce stigma and go beyond commercial interest of some campaigns? I will give some examples, but today we are focusing on digital campaigns that we partner most with tech companies. But at Vitaleri, we have carried out more than 200 projects over the past 13 years, many of them involving campaigns both online and offline. So I hope that you can see examples and pictures, several ways that campaigns can be developed. This was our first, created together with a filmmaker, myself as a specialist, and a content creator. It was the first time that a social media platform carried out an open suicide prevention campaign in Brazil. We reached 30 million people, and we could see that this was not just about numbers, but of course, and much more than that, about impact. Teachers using the materials to talk with students in Acre, more than 2,000 kilometers away from where the campaign was created. Volunteers from support groups projecting the videos on the wall of a house, and message and testimonies from young people. The phase 2 of the campaign, we got a lot of survivor stories. There are several series and pieces of content that we made, supported by Google.org, with the goal of ensuring more and more high-quality materials addressing the topic. The campaigns Did You Know and It's Necessary to Talk continue to generate debates even 6 years after they were launched. And this was the Yellow Festival, where poets and creators participated in a safe speech workshop, and then they created poems, recorded them, and had their work promoted through Instagram. The initiative also included content developed for parents and partnerships with youth magazines. And in-person event brought together public schools students, where in addition to discuss on the topic, we hosted creators for debates, offered a variety of workshops, and enclosed with a performance of one very known Brazilian singer, Emicida. In Brazil, we have the Yellow September, so there's a lot of campaigns during this month. And in 2020, we launched the Mental Health Map, a platform designed to help people to find free mental health services across the country. Because it's sometimes easier just to tell someone, go and get help, but where there's help? How can we go and find this help? Which help do I need? And from this initiative, we later developed other maps, each one with its own campaign, awareness campaigns. Even when the main focus was not specifically suicide prevention, the topic was always addressed openly. Nowadays, the map is often mentioned in news reports as a place where people can seek help. And this recognition has grown organically. We had more than 2 million hits in 5 years because we started at the beginning of the pandemics. This other campaign called Together on the Internet was made with cards to guidance on how to talk to and support young people when it comes to suicide-related content online. And it was developed in partnership with Instagram. As I said about Yellow September, the month that it's dedicated to the topic, I just want to tell that there are very important lessons to be learned, and there are also challenges in concentrating so much attention in the single period, which opens space for further reflection in another conversation. And this campaign, the Songs Can Save, was carried out on TikTok in 2021 and included live sections, debates, and conversations with famous artists such as Gilberto Gil, as well as specialists and TikTok creators. The campaign also featured indigenous content creators, allowing us, for example, to address suicide within the indigenous population. And then this one, we started from that idea that sometimes it is difficult to know how to ask for or how to offer help. That was the origin of Coda, a campaign with a bot launched in 2022 to provide people access to information on mental health and suicide prevention. Through WhatsApp, users could personalize a card and send it to someone. We also organized live sections with the creators and posts on Instagram. The campaign had 136 million impressions and reached 30 million people, generated more than 17 million engagement. This other one about on the internet we create, also in partnership with the Instagram, allowed us to address both the risks and possibilities of the internet in mental health and suicide prevention. It was a 6-month campaign with diverse formats, including posts, podcasts, live sections, and educational guides. This also had millions of views. And in order to better understand these impacts, not only of technology, but also of campaigns and communication approaches, in 2023, with support of TikTok, we launched an independent Center for Innovation and Research on Mental Health, Technology, and Suicidality. The center is structured in the 3 main research lines. And we have produced several materials based on the research of these initiatives and other initiatives, and we have a lot of researchers going on right now. This is another campaign that was born after conversations with young ambassadors as a way to start talking about mental health and move towards suicide prevention. It unfolded in several phases and included different types of content, like reels, wallpapers, and the self-knowledge quizzes, and it was reviewed by the youth. And the main themes was, calm down, breathe, everything will be all right. Another piece, it was about time and where it's your support network. Another example, this is this time in the metaverse, was a campaign focused on the idea of unposted posts, on how life on social media is not the same as the real life. We all know that, but sometimes it traps us. This campaign also reached millions of people. This post, only this post itself, it was 24.8 million views. This is another, and we changed this time because this was made from after a 2-year research project on how we could talk about mental health with boys, considering that they die by suicide 3 times more often. We ask ourselves, how we could begin this conversation with them. And to do so, we first needed to understand how they talked or did not talk about the subject. In addition to the campaign itself, we created an open course for educators on boys' mental health, as well as a guide to support creators, media, and anyone interested in fostering this dialogue. This initiative was carried out in partnership with Zoom Cares and with the support of UNICEF. In 2023, we launched the Mental Health Network in partnership with TikTok. The initial idea was to bring together creators and institutions to address mental health in a safe, ethical, and creative way. This network is still active and continues to expand even further with a lot of creators and institutions. Last year, we launched the podcast Things on Our Minds with a wide range of guests to talk about mental health and suicide prevention. Our guests included Congresswoman Erica Hilton, the psychologist of Olympic winner gymnast Rebecca Andrade, and Olympic medalist Tamiris from women's soccer, among very others. From these podcasts, we received our second TikTok award. The first TikTok award that we received was about the campaign The Musical Saves. Here are some of the results of these conversations. The issue of suicide was brought up as a part of the dialogue in almost every discussion. In this case, we share the content across 2 different profiles to test and to know how it would be better way to do it. Not only to create campaigns, but also we start to work to help others to create those campaigns and to share our knowledge. This was the idea behind the last year's YouTube Health Accelerator. And this initiative, we trained several channels on how to talk about mental health. And it was 6 months, a lot of roundtables, workshops, 5 booklets, and a best practice guide that will be launched this year. I'm almost finishing. And we also organized the VitaTech Award last year to recognize people and groups who were researching or working with communication in suicide prevention and technology. And for this prize, we had no external support, and we financed the award entirely on our own. There are some of the materials that we have produced, a lot of booklets, ranging from suicide prevention on the internet to suicide prevention in emergencies and environmental disaster, for police personnel, for survivors, and many others. Apart from my individually authored books, all of the materials are open access, and they can be found in our website. And they include books with survival stories from a literary contest we organized to documentaries. And a lot of these materials were only possible thanks to the partnership we have built over all these years. So it's essential to emphasize that without collaboration and partnerships, we would not have been able to achieve so much. Time to time, we are invited to attend public hearings and provide input on projects of law and advocacy efforts, but always as volunteers. Sadly, if our work depended on government support, we will not be here today. And maybe this is the reality for a lot of people that is attending this webinar. Strategic recommendation: build long-term across-sector alliances, design data and not assumptions, measure real impact and not just views, promote community-informed dialogue, and promote digital critical thinking and resilience, always evidence-based, co-design, and culturally adapted campaigns. Those are my references. I will not have time to talk about Vitalere, but we do a lot of work in several different areas. This is our team, and thank you very much. Our websites are there, and it was a pleasure to share with you all of this information, and I hope it helps you to create your own campaign. If you need some help, just let us know. Thank you.
It's always great to end on hope and positivity in suicide prevention. So thank you with that wonderful offer, Karen, and thank you for an amazing presentation, both in terms of the theory, but also, you know, between all three presentations, the number and breadth of efforts in these countries are overwhelming, and in a very good sense of the word. Let's see how many questions we can get through. Maybe I'll come to something that you had said, Karen, but you don't have to answer if you prefer to let someone else. You said, let's measure real impact and not just views. There are questions about how to measure the success of these kinds of campaigns. Do you or do any of the speakers want to weigh in on that?
Oh, I can start. It's views is just one way to measure, but we also measure with the emails that we receive, the comments, how people share the information, and we always try to understand, doing some research about how was the real, how people change their knowledge or change their behavior after some campaign, and how the materials that we produce were used beyond the way that we expected them to be. So there are some point of some ways that we can know how was the real impact of a campaign.
Yeah, I would second that too, especially the comments tell us a lot on social media of how a community is receiving a piece of information. You know, and we take our community's comments pretty seriously. And so if we see a pattern of like, hey, this isn't quite resonating, and they don't typically say it as diplomatically, I guess. And that's okay. That's kind of just being, you know, that's part of working in social media. But taking their concerns or their feedback really, really seriously when we start to see a pattern from the comments. And also, if a post or a campaign is sparking conversation between community members within the comments, that is always a really great sign for us.
I would say to, Doctora Valverde, would you like to speak?
Sí, yo creo que
yes, I think there are elements we see when we ask people to look for help. And when we see that the care provision was not enough, we were able to realize that they were listening to our voices. And now we need to empower all the people so that they can also become a supporting network for other people. And this is how we measure the impact. The other thing is, for instance, when we have educational centers asking for help, they ask for the place to go. Who is going to help us with that sector? Because we already know that there is an institutional organized work, but through the message, through conveying the message, we are telling them you are not alone, you have a supporting community, and this is also a way to measure the effectiveness of our actions in terms of prevention and control of suicidal thoughts or suicidal actions. I would like also to add, because we have the funds, because we are many organizations working on this Seize the Awkward campaign, we can have surveys with young people to ask them how they were receiving our campaigns, if they had seen our messages, if they are willing to talk to a friend, if they see a friend is suffering, if they can know how to recognize the signals. So we ask them if they have understood the messages we are trying to convey through the campaigns. And when we have the funds to do that, we can ask directly to the customer if she saw the campaign, what was your reaction, what are you going to do once you have received these messages. And one thing we saw is that the campaign was welcomed, the campaign was recognized, and young people are willing to talk to their peers about these difficult topics. And this is another way to measure the success of a campaign, but usually we don't always have the funds to have this type of surveys.
There's more literature out there on harms of media reports than benefits, usually in the context of a celebrity suicide or a widely publicized story of someone dying by suicide. Obviously, thankfully, we do have new and emerging data which shows that when you tell stories of survival or people overcoming suicidal crises, you can see reductions in suicides, the so-called Papageno effect. But still, and clearly that's influenced all of the media and communications that we've seen today, which really emphasize that aspect. But is there anything that you would like to share with the audience about just making sure that unintentional harms don't come from this kind of messaging?
What we do in our campaigns, we always try to think what can be wrong, if we face something that we are not expected, what could be. So this is a way to try to think of if like a young person dies by suicide after seeing a video from the campaign, how could we actually, what can we do before that to be really to be safe? And we, of course, that we follow the guidelines of WHO and other guidelines about safe messaging, but we always ask for some teenagers also to have a look on the campaign and to give to give their points, and other specialists. So yeah, we always think a lot about how to not do harm with the campaigns.
Yeah, similarly, I can speak from AFSP's social perspective. We try to be very gentle in our social media approach. And that, when we're creating content, when we look at the visuals, I try and see it from the perspective of potentially someone who might be struggling. So, we don't want to show anything that could be misconstrued as a method. So we try not to show water or bridges, stuff, different environments that could potentially be activating for some. And that also goes all the way from that type of visual to different designs that are sharp looking. We really try to make it as soft as possible, while also still being, really educational and in a sense, we want to be a leader in this space, and so we really lean into our content experts as well.
If there, Dr. Valverde, please.
Gracias. Yo creo que hay un elemento que es.
Yes, I think there is an element, and it is related to provide the people who is suffering with the information to where he can go. We always start with "you are not alone," and of course, we are never going to talk with verbs about the methods or actions. But I think that for the environment, in terms of the environment, we need to provide the person with possibilities and with certainties to let her know that he's or she is not alone.
I think we're running out of time, so since we're coming to the end of the webinar, I'd like to give the floor to Dr. Renato Oliveira y Souza, Chief of the PAHO Mental Health and Substance Use Unit, to give some closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Mark. I have to be honest that most of the webinars, I'm the one behind trying to control the time. But for this one, I was expecting that you guys would go overtime, because we cannot get tired of listening to the experiences that were shared here with us. And I think this is going to be useful for everyone who has joined our webinar today. And hopefully when we put the recording of the webinar in the PAHO web page, many more people will be able to have access to the very precious information that the speakers have shared with us. This has been a super relevant and informative webinar, and I really thank all our excellent speakers. And well, I think we had almost 300 people joining us today, and this shows the relevance of the topic. We know that suicide is a significant public health crisis in the region of the Americas. Some of you might have already read the recent regional suicide report published by the Pan American Health Organization with data up to 2021, and more than 100,000 people die annually in the region of the Americas due to suicide. And the regional suicide mortality continues to increase. So raising awareness on mental health issues and suicide is really an essential component of preventing suicides in the region of the Americas. And when done properly and guided by evidence, awareness communications and campaigns across a variety of media can really reduce stigma and discrimination, promote health seeking, and direct people to services and care, as well as avoid any unwanted harmful consequences, as has been discussed exhaustively here. On behalf of the Pan American Health Organization, I can really emphasize that we are committed to supporting countries in their efforts to reduce suicide mortality. We have launched the PAHO Regional Suicide Prevention Initiative to reduce high and rising suicide rates in the region of the Americas using the best evidence available. So as the ones described in the WHO Live Life Guide. Increasing public awareness and reducing stigma is an essential component of the work that the Regional Suicide Prevention Initiative is doing and will continue to do. So I really encourage all of us to continue learning about how to responsibly communicate on suicide so that we can raise awareness to prevent it. Together, we can change the narrative on suicide. Thank you very much again, Mark, panelists. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you so much, Renato. And so many important points there, including that we could go into overtime, and we need to continue the conversation. This is an evolving area. We'll have to see how this goes. We will definitely be back to continue it. But for the moment, just to thank Sinai and Maria and Vera and Karen for taking the time to share your expertise on this incredibly crucial topic with really profound and fantastic talks, and to PAHO and to the University of Toronto for their partnership and collaboration in this webinar series on suicide prevention. We definitely look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. We will be sharing more information about that soon, so please stay tuned. And remember, for everyone who's watching, if you or someone you know is in a crisis, please seek help from a medical professional or contact your local helpline. Help is out there, hope is out there, suicide can be prevented. Gracias y tengan un buen día.